All right, we're going to get started. Just so you know, as far as what I gave you in that folder, there's two folders inside of the folder. One is filled with articles, all right, and one is filled with a bunch of code examples. What we're going to talk about today for about an hour or so, like I said, is core data, all right? And I want to show you a few things. Core data, unlike the NS user default that we worked with last week, is made that it will also save bigger things that are more voluminous in size. It's not recommended that you use the NS user defaults that we went over last time for things like images. All right, it's just not physically set up to hold things that are that big. All right, and what core data is it's a subset of the SQLite database. You're going to see it in just a couple minutes. All right, but I put just a couple things I wanted to say in here. Here's the introduction to core data, and it says there's different ways that you can do this, and they talk about some of them. I'm not going to go through any of them. Now, I do want to mention this. I'm not going to click on either of these. All right, in here, this is both really good and really bad, these two YouTube URLs. What they are is, there's a gentleman who I think he's from India, but I'm not sure. It's that kind of a dialect, that kind of an accent, so it's kind of thick. He knows what he's talking about. He's not the easiest person in the world to understand. He does a to-do list with core data, and there's nothing wrong with the one he did. That's not the one that you've got a copy of, but that's in there. So if you're interested in that.
Is that the one from the PDF book?
No.
Those URLs?
No, those URLs are literally just, I was online looking for all sorts of different stuff for different examples of core data. All right, I haven't even gone through the core data example that's in our PDF because that's like chapter 12, and I'm still mired in chapter 9 because I had an error I've been trying to fix for a couple weeks.
Oh.
All right. So this second one here, this is from Techotopia, and the only thing I want to mention about it is what they talk about in here. It depends on who you are, but sometimes with people, they want to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So this is a really good article in that it does explain there's a core data stack, and it explains the different things that are in there. I'm going to show them to you. I don't at all say that I'm an expert on this. In fact, I say that when it comes to hardware, I'm not an expert. It's another good reason I'm glad you're here, John, all right? Because I'm not, all right? And I've never claimed to be. This is what they show you in here, all right? And this is the whole thing. So it's an iPad app, but it wouldn't matter if it was an iPad app or if it was an iPhone app. But the point is, when you go down here, the key thing to realize is when you're looking at this stuff, this is going to be your core data file in here, and you notice there are a lot of layers in between. All right? Again, it's not my goal here to sit there and explain every one of these to you. But notice in here they do talk about entity descriptions. We're gonna go through this, and we're gonna go through an example. Will we have problems when we go through it? We might. All right. It's really not that hard to do, but it's different. Especially those of you who have gone through one or more database classes. Oh, I'll just do this. Oh, I'll just do this. I would recommend not going ahead and see how fast you can get this done. All right, because some of it's a little bit different than some of the stuff that we've learned. Again, they tried to set this up, this is what I've been reading, as being the equivalent of database for non-database people. All right, so the idea is that you don't have to go and, oh, I want to do this app, and oh, I want there to be persistent storage. Oh, but I don't want to learn SQLite, and I don't know a lick about databases. So the idea was you could use core data where you are using SQLite, but again, you've got a wrapper that you're using that's a little bit less intimidating. All right, at least that's the thought behind this. So if you want more on this, and again, I don't want to read to you or anything else, but they explain what each of the components in here is. All right, and the thing to realize is when we look at this, you're going to look at it and go, oh, that's a table. Oh, that's a database. Oh, that's, and it pretty much is what it is. It pretty much is, but it's not exactly. In fact, it's funny because going out online and looking, there are a lot of places there that say, no, it's not a database. In other places that say, yeah, it is, it's a database. but it's a protective shell that they put around a database to kind of protect you from you. All right, so it depends on who you read. But like I said, this whole thing, the whole idea, again, is with persistence. This is what we're going to get into in just a couple minutes. So when you get into it, it's going to literally look like this. And when you want to go in and you want to add new data, you're going to add it right here. So it looks a little different, yet it looks a little similar to some of the stuff we've done in other classes. All right? Yeah, that's enough from this one. Now, this example that's in here, I'm not going to go through this right now. This is the example that we're going to do as a class in just a couple minutes. Okay? So you've got all of the stuff. And I went through like about 4 or 5 of these. And I tried to say, well, what one could we do that even if people are having problems, we could do it in an hour or so. I like to actually have it done in an hour so that way if people have problems, they've got the other hour, they can try to fix them. If I can be of any help, I'll try to be. Sometimes the best thing I can do, when you're working on it is just get out of your way and let you figure it out. All right? So we're going to go through this one in just a minute. Now, the other one that's in here is this one. This is from that Ray Wenderlich. All right? And if you notice, it's 24 pages long. So what I did was I made some changes to his. Again, you have to realize that's pretty old. It really and truly is. We're running Swift 1.0 on these machines. All right, notice I didn't say Swain. We're running Swift 1.0. They're already up to 1.2.
Yeah.
And they're up to like 6, I think it's 6.33 of Xcode. And we're running 6.1 on here. So just because he put code out there doesn't mean necessarily that when I wanted to put it in, it worked. All right? And Teresa's already found this out because when she got her machine, she loaded a newer version of Xcode. And I don't know about you, Anders, if you've got a newer version or not. But sometimes you got to make changes to make stuff work. The idea, when you listen to the people who are involved in languages, with every version of it, they're trying to make it easier for people to use. The real problem with this is, if you don't know this, there are no Swift standards. That's the biggest problem right now. The language is growing faster than somebody who can figure out standards and how you're supposed to do things. And that's why, you go out there and you watch enough YouTube and other videos, you see some people and you can tell, oh, you're a .NET programmer. I can tell by the way you name your variables, etc. You're this kind of programmer. You're a Java programmer. And people are just, and that's when you go out there and you look, 5 people can do the same thing and their code looks remarkably different between them. Not just the way that they name their variables, but you can tell the mentality and the mindset of the language that they're using. All right? So what I did with this example right here, this one, all right, is I took this kind of the way he did it, but what that is on the folder that you guys all have, that's the coordinated to-do list, part 1, part 2, and part 3. All right, just so you know, that's out there. And what I tried to do was I tried to take either his comments or my own, and I tried to comment a lot in them. So part 1 right there, there's no core data in it. In other words, you create the to-do list, everything works just fine. It's very similar to the example we use with the NS user defaults. He creates an array of strings, all right? And that's what he has for his to-do list. But there's no persistence, all right? And he brings that in parts 2 and 3. But he kind of broke it up so it was about 8 pages, 8 pages, and 8 pages or so. So I did the same thing. So when you get to the last instance of this, this is all I want to show you on it. And just so you know, too, literally, even if he gives the code, and I don't know if he did or not in here, I type it all in anyway. I'm looking at it this way, that how can I tell you that when I give you something, you should still type it in if I don't do it? I just think it's wrong that I don't. So I do type it in. All right, that's why you guys, when we were all talking before and somebody said, yeah, but who's got time to do this? Yeah, I get it. Who's got time to do half the stuff you do? All right? And I'm hoping this machine lasts for 4.5 more weeks, because it has a tendency that the more I get the little round thing, it usually is about to go crashy. All right, that's what I found. So if you look in here, notice this is what you get by default, right? Well, I put a bunch of comments in here. So as you walk your way through it, you'll notice there's a lot of green in here. Because what I tried to do was everything that's being done in there, I tried to comment it out, or comment it, not comment it out, but comment it so you knew what was going on. All right? So if I do go through there and I run this, it will be persistent. In other words, what do I mean by persistent? I can go in there into that to-do list. First of all, there'll be something in there. I don't know what. Whatever I put in there last. Okay? And it's saved. All right? But I can add things to it, and then if I get out and get back in again, those things will still be there. Now, one thing he does not have in this example, but you will see in the example we're going to do as a class in just a couple minutes, we don't have delete capabilities. So he didn't put that in there. So, you know, typically if I'm going to have a to-do list, well, part of the reason for a to-do list is eventually I'll want to be able to remove things because I've done them. All right, type of an idea. All right, but we don't have that ability in here. It wouldn't take that much to provide that. All right, but I didn't. How's that? And again, I've ran off copies of all these, not for you guys, but just so all the stuff that I've taken a couple minutes to go over, I've got copies of them, and that's what I've been working with. Sometimes I think that if I'm the person who teaches this class the next time it's taught, I might not even get a book. All right, that I might be taking stuff from the web. The problem with taking stuff from the web is there's a lot of stuff out there that's really good that's not very new. Like Toots Plus, if you've never heard of tootsplus.com, they've got a lot of great tutorials. I was reading one of their tutorials that was really good, and I thought, man, I didn't even look at the date, and I thought, this is good, but it seems a little old. And it was like 2011. That's old for this stuff. All right, 2012. Yeah, I like that. I won't mention whose that is. There we go. So again, I just put a bunch of junk in there last time, and every time I click add, so the difference is, in the last example we did, what I wanted to show you was not just the NS user defaults, but some segues. So there are no segues in here. All right. So when I click add, notice what it brings up. It just brings up basically the equivalent of an alert that tells you to add something. All right. It's not alphabetized or anything, but if I just put in here, take a nap, and I click save. There it is. All right. And you'll notice when I come out now and I do this, so if I quit the simulator, so I totally get out, I could totally get out of the whole package, but hopefully you trust me that when I bring it back up again, all that stuff is going to be back in there, including take a nap. All right. So it persisted. All right. Again, this is the recommended way to do persistent storage. Now, one of the reasons that this is the recommended way to do persistent storage, all right, there's a language that you learned about a year ago, and to some of you, it was a great language, and to some of you, it's a 4-letter word, even though it's only a single word, that's C, because the actual calls that you make in here are C calls. All right, which is just another good reason for dovetailing, going from the C to the ObjectiveC to the Swift. All right. So you'll see it's there, including take a nap. So it's all there. All right. So like I said, if you have an interest in that one, it's out there. And that's the one, as I mentioned to you, that is out there. So let's just take a quick look, and then we're going to start on this as a class. So the core data to do 1, 2, and 3, that's from the Ray Wenderlich thing that's in here. The core data demo, this is the one we're going to do in just a minute. All right, this hit list final, this is the one that Wenderlich creates. He calls it a hit list because what he uses, instead of a to-do list, it's just a list of names. All right, but I tried to make it more reminiscent of what we were doing before. This introduction to core, this thing, which is one of the longest names I've ever seen, All right, that is the one with those two YouTubes that I showed you before. All right, and there's another article out here that one's for, and I don't remember what it is. All right, so what we're going to do is just kind of follow the steps. So what I'd like you to do is go in, create a brand new single view project, wherever you typically create your projects, call it whatever you want. I'm going to create mine right on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Core Data. All right. And again, I'm taking this right from this second Techtopia article that's called an iOS Swift Data Tutorial. All right. And I went through this a couple times. The first time I went through it, I had some problems. Second time I went through it, went slick as heck. All right. So we'll see how it works. And make sure, please look at the screen. Check this. We've never checked that before. That's going to create a new file for you. That new file is the thing that's going to look database-ish, for lack of better words. If you don't do that, I don't know if there's a way that you can go back in to the plist or something and check it, because I think it expects that as it's building everything. Because remember, it's building a lot of files too in the background for you. All right? But you want to make sure you are using Core Data. So this is the first time we've chosen use Core Data. Really and truly doesn't matter very much whether you do it for iPhone or you do it universal or you do it for an iPad. It really doesn't matter. All right. Again, since I already have one in this folder, let's see, I don't have anything right on the desktop with that name, so this should work Swift. No pun intended, but it should work just fine without a problem. All right. So I'm just going to go to my storyboard. And as I usually do, because this is really big, I'm again going to click here on my view controller. I'm going to go over to my attributes inspector, and I'm going to set the size, bless you, to 4-inch. All right. You don't have to do, oops, you don't have to do that. Again, it doesn't make the program run any better. It's just a little easier for all of you to see. It's the only reason I'm doing that. All right. Now, if you look up here, this is the magical file. It should be the name of your program. Since I called my Core Data, it automatically put an underscore in there. Bless you. Dot, I don't know what that is, but it's XC Data Model. D, I don't know if that's it. D on the under what. This is what we're going to end up working with. That's the new file that gets created when you choose Use Core Data. What we're going to create is going to look like a really simple database. All right, so it's going to look like a really simple database that has one table in it that's going to have, I think it's 3 fields. They're all going to be strings. All right, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this better. I'm going to put in a salary, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put in so much stuff that all it's going to do is screw up every one of you, and if it doesn't screw you up, it's going to screw me up. So I said, let's just keep it simple and see if we have a half dozen or so people in here, if we can get it to work for everybody. To me, that's a victory. A lot more than, what you're going to see in just a minute when we go through this is there's different data types. But we're going to choose string for everything. Not only that, we're going to have a field called name, which violates a lot of the good protocols of database, which says you should have a field called first name and one called last name. We're not going to do that. We're not worried about it. Because it's possible you could put in just a first name or a whole name, or a first name and a last name, or a first name, middle initial, last name, or whatever. I don't really care. That's not the idea behind this. All right. So I'm going to single click on that file then to bring it up on the screen. And it looks a little bit different. All right. This is what we're going to do now is we're going to create what's called the entity description. All right. So when we want to do new stuff, which is what we want to do, all right, to get started, we're going to click that Add Entity button. All right, so we're going to click that Add Entity button. Now, there's other stuff we can do. We can come in here and we can play with names and do all sorts of stuff. You know, that's not really very important, to be honest with you. So I'm going to click that button down towards the bottom left-hand corner here that says Add Entity. All right. Most people will tell you that an entity is the equivalent. All right. What's an entity? It's going to end up being a table. All right, for lack of better words. All right, it's going to end up being part of a database. All right. Some people will say, no, it's the database. I'm not going to fight either way, but I'm going to click that button that says Add Entity. And notice how this changes. All right. The key to this is, first of all, it's real easy when you do this to go and start adding a bunch of stuff you didn't mean to add. I'm just telling you that right now. If you click the button or hold down on it or whatever, you're going to do stuff you didn't mean to do. Okay? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to come in here and we want to create an attribute. All right? So I'm going to click the plus sign by attributes. And notice what it shows me. Now, if you want to start screwing around and getting stuff to not work real fast, okay, don't do this. But if you click the button again, it's going to try to create another attribute. What's the problem with that? Well, it doesn't care that you've got an attribute named attribute. It does care that the type of it is undefined. All right. So we're going to just type in here where it's blue, where right now it says attribute. We're going to type in name. All right. And then I'm going to click here. So I typed in name where it said attribute up here, and then I clicked here. And these are my data types. Now, when you look at those, most of them should make sense to you. All right. And to keep it simple, all right, again, to keep it simple, we're just going to choose string. All right. Again, I didn't. The example doesn't play much with. The example didn't play much with different data types, so I'm not either. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose string. All right. So what have I done? I put in my first attribute. Very simply, it's a string named name. I'm going to put two more in here. All right, and I'm going to have address and phone. You should all understand how to do this now. So address, which is also a string, and phone. Which again is also a string. Now, it's interesting because when I did this last time, I'm trying to see if it's going to let me move this around because I would really rather have that up at the top. But you know what? I don't really care. If it really bugged me, if I was going to be that anal about it, you know, if it really bugged me, hey, I wanted that to be first. I could always take this one to here and remove it and then add again. Oh, that's interesting. I thought it would put it at the top.
Forces alphabetical.
Ah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Click that little arrow after attribute.
After here or here?
Up there, yeah.
It'll force it alphabetically.
All right. But where it says attribute, of course, I don't want it to be attribute. All right. I want that to be name. And again, I want all of these to be string. And again, in all seriousness, this right here, this doesn't really matter. I don't care about the order. I don't really care. All right? But what we've done is the equivalent of creating a simple table that has 3 fields in it. Each field is of type string. All right? And it's funny because when I went through the Wenderlich example, they did something somewhat similar to this, but I did nothing in here. I did nothing. And it worked just fine. Okay? When I tried doing it that way in here, it didn't like it unless I started setting up relationships right here. All right? So what I did was I clicked here under relationship. Click the plus button first, sorry. And it says, well, what do you have? Okay? And relationship seemed fine. Destination, well, I said entity. And inverse, I said no inverse. So I kept it like that. And it seemed to like it a lot better when I did that. All right? Again, I'm running through this fairly quickly. I understand that. But it's all based off of what's right here. All right? So they go through here and they start, they go into some detail on what they're doing, why they're doing it. All right, and then the bottom of page 3, this I don't want to read to you, but I do want to mention a couple things that they mention in here. All right, it says, this application, the data model will be represented by a subclass of the NS managed object class. So you will end up using NS managed object in here as opposed to the NS user default that we used a week ago. All right, when we looked at some simple ways of persistent storage and segues and the like. All right, it says rather than you having to do this, and this is what's kind of cool, what we're about to do, you don't have to write the code now. All right, so what I'd like you to do is to go up to your editor, and I don't care, again, the order in which these are doesn't really matter, okay? But go up to your editor, click Editor, and one of the things that's there is create NS managed object subclass. All right, you should see that on yours. All right, just choose that. Okay, and it's going to ask you a couple questions on here. It says select the data model. Well, as you can probably guess, considering we only have one, it's really hard to get this wrong. But it would be possible if you had an advanced enough application that you could have several data models. All right, that's not beyond the realm of possibility. In much the same way that you could have different databases that were interacting with the same program. You can do that. All right. So with that selected, click the next button. And then it says, what entities would you like to do? And you'll notice nothing's lit up because you have to literally highlight it.
You have to click on the box. That's we checked.
Thank you. And then, so click on the box, so it's checked, you're right, and then click next. But before, if you've already done it, it's not a problem. All right? But what I want you to realize is what we're about to do here is we're going to have a new file that's going to get created over here, a new Swift file. All right? And since we didn't change the name of entity, I think it'll be called entity.swift. We could have changed that. Again, I'm more concerned with getting this done and at least going over a fairly simplistic example of it with you. All right? So it says, where do you want to create it? Well, right where we are. So create, and there it is, entity.swift. Does that kind of look familiar? All right, I'll come over and look at it in just a second. But you should get something that looks like this.
Did you get a message that said, would you like to confirm?
Yeah.
ObjectiveC Bridge?
That's the message I got.
Yeah.
Okay. I trust Jeff. Just say yes.
Say yes.
I've never seen the message before, so I figure it's not going to screw anything up. But what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You start it over again, right?
Yeah.
Xcode no longer works.
No, no matter how much I bolt things up, and you don't know, it's like the old thing when they talk about outtakes of TV shows. If I ever did outtakes from, especially the videos I do at home, they would be X-rated. They would be. Because I drop so many F-bombs when stuff, especially if I've been working on it for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, a couple times that's happened when I go, but I'll say a word. It's okay, I'm done now, I'm done taping now, because I've already done that where I've tried to remove stuff that I put on the tape, and sometimes you can still hear it, even after I've removed it, so I don't keep it in there. All right?
Mine didn't create the Swift file. I
Mine
got
either.
Yours either? Okay.
header and a .h and a .m file.
Me too.
Okay.
It could be
And that's-
easy to choose Swift.
Yeah, that is from the ObjectiveC. Maybe we should have tried it again and said no.
So delete them
Right.
two files then? And
Well, it's not that simple. All right. I wish I would have had that error before, because then I could have told you exactly, what to do with it.
Because I had to change my language from ObjectiveC to Swift when that little pop-up thing was in. Where it asks, like,
Oh, did you hear that? Yeah.
just before
Yeah,
hit
if you have
create.
anything that pops up that ever says ObjectiveC and it gives you a choice, you do have to manually change it to Swift. All right.
When you're creating the entity.swift file, before you hit create, there's
Now,
an option.
The good news is this whole thing is 10 pages long, and we're on page 6. So I'm going to go till about 4 o'clock. All right, then what I'll do is I'm going to run this off. I'll run off a half dozen copies so you can each have one. And even if you start all over again, I'd like you to try it and see if you can get it to work. All right, because there's not really a whole boatload of code. There really and truly is not. But what's nice about it, this is the interface. This is what we're going to build right here. Literally, name, address, and phone. And then there'll be a label underneath that. Okay? And then there'll be two buttons underneath that, one that says save and one that says find. So I come in here and I type in Jeff Scott, 6004, South Prairie, whatever it is, South County Road G, 608-757-7784. Boom. I put that in, I click save, it stores it into persistent data. Then I put in a few more names. Then I come back and I put my name in again. And the reason I do that, put it in, is because find will find multiple occurrences of it, after you put the code in there. All right? So you may have multiple customers with the same name, or you may want to check something where you've got multiple salespeople, or maybe one salesperson that's got a bunch of different regions, etc. All right? So it says here, when you use core data with Swift-based code, it's important to include the app name as part of the class name. By default, the new entity is assigned a class name of contacts. Well, that's if you changed it. We didn't. All right? Ours already says core demo, etc. All right? And mine still says entity. Again, what I should have shown you before, and I forgot to, was you can change that name when you get in here. Now, that said, if you go, oh, geez, I'll just go back and do it now. No, don't do that. Don't sit there and be going through something that's 15 or 20 steps long and get halfway through it and go, you know what, I really should have done this in step 1 and go back and do that. I would never recommend doing that. If there's ever been a language, and maybe this is one of the reasons you have the problems with it, and Steve does, etc., that's quirky as hell, this is it. There's absolutely no problems at all with the language as long as you do exactly what it wants you to do with the order and the way in which it wants you to do it. It's not a problem. All right? I'd make a joke, but it'd be sexist right now. And then I'd be accused of being sexist. All right? I was going to say it's kind of like my wife. It's like if I do something, the other day she asked me to clean something. Oh, no, she asked me to fold the laundry. And I got done. What happened 5 minutes later? She was refolding it. And she was wondering why I was peeved. And I said, why didn't you just fold it? No, you tried. You did a pretty good job. Okay. And I asked her once, I said, did you ever notice the things that I do best? For example, my job and singing and stuff. I said, they're all things you have absolutely no interest in. She said, yeah, why is that? I said, maybe that's one of the reasons I'm so good at them. She said, what does that mean? I said, because you're not pissing and moaning about the way I'm doing them all the time. Then she threatened to take a class with me. And I said, no, you're not. Yeah, I'm going to pay my money so you can take a class with me so I can get paid that money back. Somehow that just doesn't seem right. So, all right. But they do tell you that you want that you have to come in here and make a change. It says you want to load this file back into the editor. I just want to show you this. All right. And then select the entity name from the left-hand panel. So right there. All right. And that's where you can change the name. See that? It says entity right there. All right. So I could have had you change it. It probably wouldn't hurt anything now if you changed it to contacts or something. I don't know. I have not tried to do this thing where I said, hey, let's see if I can get partway through it and then start changing stuff. All right. I know, it's hard to believe. Well, geez, Jeff, why didn't you? All right. Okay. Then they tell you to bring up the utilities panel over here. Whoops. And on one of these, I think this is the one right here. Yes. It says that name right there that says entity. See that? It says entity, and underneath it, it says entity. What that should actually say right here, under the class name, it's got to say the name of, so I call this what? Core data, I think. So it's got to say core data dot entity. You have to change it. So this name has to map with the name of the project. Again, some of you are giving me funny looks, so I'm going to give you that. I'm going to run off a copy of it in just a couple minutes. All right. In fact, John, maybe if you don't mind, I'll just do that right now. All right. So I'll run off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copies. Like I said, it's not a long document, so. Well, and all I can tell you too is if this is any indication, if you think this has been fun, wait till we get to the game stuff. Okay?
The only two things that'll make you turn your head that fast, bacon and eating.
There's one more. There's one more. Kim.
Oh, Kim, yeah.
But Kim eating bacon, playing a game, oh my God.
Wasn't going there.
That's nirvana right there. That's. So again, the next thing, I'm just going to show you this. Don't worry about keeping up or doing it, okay? Because I'm going to give you, John's going to give you the copy of them in just a second. But what I want to show you in here is this is what the interface looks like, okay? We put a label here. You don't have to do this, especially if you had problems before with the stuff that you were doing. So put a label there, another label. Oh, it's the about here. I'm just trying to line them up. I'm eyeballing it. I'm not that concerned with auto layout or anything like that right now. All right. This label right here is going to say name. This one is going to say address. And this one is going to say phone.
Oh, that doesn't say phone.
No, not even close. All right, I could stretch them out so they were the same size. Again, I'm not really that concerned with that. All right, and then I want to put in 3 text fields here. One that's actually going to hold the name. Another one that's going to actually hold the address. And another one that's going to hold the phone number. And what I ended up doing with this one, just so you know, again, all I'm trying to do is show you the interface. What I ended up doing with this one was I ended up stretching it out all the way to the other end. So it looks like that, and like this, and like this. And then I came in and created my buttons. So there was a button here, and that button is called Save. There's another button that's over here that's called Find. And what I forgot was there's a label in between those. And that label, I again stretched out and made it nice and big. So I put it over here and stretched it out over here. So that's the interface. Again, it's not perfect. There's a lot of things that we can do with this, all right, to make it look a little better, but at least it's presentable, all right? Again, I didn't care right now. I did not care about auto layout or anything, you know, all right? So this might look like a big disaster if I try to run it in landscape, all right? Do you all know the trick, though? So you say, you know what, Jeff, that looks like a big disaster when you run it in landscape. So I come over here, and I click up here, and I just take my 2 landscape, and now it doesn't look bad in landscape at all. All right? So when people tell me, you know, that thing looks terrible in landscape, how would you know? Okay? So that's the interface that they have you build. And then as John passes this out, I'm going to bring the actual write-up, this thing up. And it's good because I'm on page 8 of 10. All right. But I want to mention here a few things that have to change. When we did this before, when we set this kind of thing up and we had a to-do list, we had an array of strings. All right? Strings, by their very nature, are not persistent objects. So what we're doing in here, all right, what we're doing in here is first thing you have to do is you have to import this. See that line? That's got to go underneath the import UI kit. All right? So it says, this is your viewcontroller.swift file. You want to import core data. Okay? And if you're like me and you can't understand why something doesn't work, it's C-O-R-E, not C-O-R-D data. Because mine wasn't working because I was importing chord data. And I don't know what that is.
It's music. It's
Okay.
in your music.
All right. So this is the stuff we already had. Okay. I'm sorry. This is right here. Basically, what this is saying is we're going to be using core data. We're using a managed data object in here. That's what it says. These hopefully make sense to you. Those are all the outlets that we went and grabbed from those pieces of data. All right. Name for that first text field, address for the second text field, phone number for the third text field, and status for that label that went under them. Okay? What you might want to do with that status, if you want to, you can make it real big and multi-line. Because what it's going to do is it's going to show all the information in there. If you click find, it's going to, if it finds somebody, it's going to show everything. Okay? So that's that. All right, so that'll set it up, but now, what do you do when you want to save? Well, this is the code right here. That's all of it, I believe, right there. That's all the code that will allow you to save to persistent data. All right? So we're setting up the managed data object here. And what we're doing here, for lack of better words, is we're saying take the stuff that's in our text boxes and copy it over into the equivalent of our databases. So we're saying here, copy it from its place on the form into core data. And when you do this, here's the real surprise. It may not work. In other words, what happens if this is called salary, let's just say, and it's been set up as a double. And John puts John Wanda in there. It's not going to work, right? So it's possible that that doesn't work. So when you do all this stuff, you basically have to set it up to check whether or not you had an error. This is the equivalent, for lack of better words. It's kind of like a try-catch. It's not, but it's kind of like it. All right? So you come in here and you create an error of a variable called error of type NS error. Okay? That's what we're doing in here. And then what we're saying is, now we're going to attempt to save. In other words, we're attempting now to grab everything that we put into core data and now save it. And this is the one thing I don't like about this. Remember that? What did that mean? What does the ampersand mean in C?
Oh,
Who knows? No, that's not really, that's not an answer. Address of. It needs the address when it's working with it. All right? And here what it's saying is, if you had an error, then basically in that label, show me what the error was. So if I put something in there that didn't work in our interface, you know, the interface that I just showed you that looked like this, you've got name, and you've got address, and you've got phone, right? And you've got a text field, a text field, a text field. Then you got a label down here, then you got a button here that says save, and you got another button here that says find. If for some reason you put in something here that you attempted to put into core data and it didn't work, it's going to give you the answer or the error right in there. That's what we're telling it. All right. But if it did work, all right, that means that everything was okay. So we want to clear all that out because we want to let you know that it's safe to contact so we can add another one. And that's all we're doing. Go ahead.
So when it says, okay, the address of the error, it's talking about which text field area?
It's trying to equate where it got the error.
It's
So
say,
yes.
okay, you got an error in
Yeah,
D.
but it's not going to give you the name of that text field. It's probably going to give you something more along the lines of an address location. But it needs to know where that is. Basically what you're doing is you're asking, thank you. You're asking, well, the equivalent of you're asking the debugger things. You're asking the debugger, where did it go wrong?
Yeah.
All right, you're asking it to tell you. And that's what it's doing there.
Right.
All right? All right. And then the last thing
Something wrong in there.
is, okay, now you got it, now you want to retrieve it. All right? So this is the code to retrieve it. Now some of the code that's in here, not all of it, but some of it looks very similar to what we just looked at. How about like all this stuff? Looks pretty much the same. And I'm not sure why they did that, but I was looking at it and I thought, This looks almost the same. This may have changed, but I think everything that's in here is the same, I think. All right, maybe I'm on the wrong page. Maybe that is the exact same thing. There we go. All right. So this is telling it to go through the list, loop through it, and find me everybody who meets the criteria that I'm looking for. So in other words, bottom line, let me show it to you like this. All right. Minimize this. I'm going to grab this thing that I've got right here. I'm going to do a save. And I'm just going to quit the project. All right, close project. So I'm going to go back to the one that I've already built for you. This is, again, it's called Core Data Demo. All right? That's the same exact one that's in here. It's the same exact stuff. And I'm going to run this. There are comments in here. They're not nearly the number of comments in here that I have in the other example. All right, but there are some example or some comments that I put in here, some in here, not really, I guess, any in there. But all I want to do is show you this, and I'm going to give you the rest of the period. You can take a look at this at your leisure. And for those of you who are like, no, it's the last thing in the world I want to do, you can either leave or work on something else. Okay, Mark, again in your honor.
Oh.
All right, but notice if I come in here and click in here and I put in, and I forgot to even check. I'm not positive whether or not this is case sensitive or not, but I'm going to put in here Jeff, Scott, find. Okay, see that? It went and filled it in for me. And it showed me how many matches there are. All right? I didn't get real much further with it than that. So if you'd ask me, well, what about this? What about not to be funny or facetious or anything else, try it. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And if you try it and you're having problems with it, then just use the one I've already created. That one does work. Like I said, I built this like about 4 times. I had some problems myself, bless you. But I never got that error that you all got about the bridge. Not sure exactly what. I would have had to have watched you build the whole thing to see exactly what it was. I don't know. All right. So you've got the handout if you want to give this a try. All right. So that's it for today. Thursday will be lab. Remember, everybody remember, there are no classes a week from today. It is an in-service day for us. I don't know if they make you come in for that or not. They do? Oh, God. It's an in-service day for instructors. That means we have to come in here a week from today, the 21st. 21st, 1 week from today. The school is not. There are no day classes in session next Tuesday. The 21st.
Gotcha.
All right. Thursday. Some of you won't be in here next Thursday because you'll be at that grad expo. All right, I'm probably going to walk down there at least a few times to see how it's going. I like to introduce myself to local employers, so at least they can put a face with whatever. All right, and then 2 weeks from today, which is the 28th, that's when we're going to do a simple game. And like I said, it's going to be simple. All right, hopefully you can guess why. But I've already got some stuff just so you're aware of it. So if you're interested, and if you're not, okay. But if you're interested, I've been going out and doing a lot of reading on that too. So if you notice, this is already out there. And I've been in the middle of trying to build this because they actually have Space Invaders. It's a 3-part series building Space Invaders using Swift. All right. I was going to see if I could go in. This was going to be my surprise, honestly. I was going to see if I could change it from the invader coming down. I was going to look for a sprite of bacon. So it's going to be bacon coming down that you were going to shoot at. All right. But I've done very little with it. I just want to tell you this. If you just look up on a screen, I'm done. But if you look at this first one here, oh, you don't have it up there. I'll switch back. I'll tell you what. I'll switch back. So let's see. How am I going to do that? I'm going to lose my connection here, but that's all right. All right.
And then if you click the save button when there's blank spaces, it'll save the blank spaces.
I did not know that. All right. But this first thing in here is called tutorials. This is a thing I found that literally just has tutorial after tutorial. There's 12 pages of game tutorials on here. All right. Some of them are dated. They're back in 2013, and some of them are fairly new. So if you do decide that you want to go in and at least try something or take a game that's in here and maybe make modifications on it or whatever, that's what I was looking for. All right. So that's why it's there. Again, notice game development, Swift Core, Space Shooter, Sprite. Some of these have videos associated with them, YouTube or other videos. Most of them are YouTube. Some of them I hate them because they're little punk kids. I'm like, oh my God, how can you know that much more than me? All right, and you just do stuff and it just works. All right.
Was this in the stuff you gave us today, or?
This is in the stuff that is in for under 428.
Oh.
It's out on the P drive.
Oh.
All right, and I give everybody a copy of it because then I'm going to have the finished game in 2 weeks. All right, and when we do that in 2 weeks, that's going to be the last lecture. So the last 2 weeks of class, Tuesday, Thursday, which are like the 4th, or maybe it's the 5th. What is it? The 5th and the 7th, and then the 12th and the 14th. Those will all be labs. My hope is you'll have your stuff turned in by the time you leave here on that Thursday. I will take stuff through like Saturday if I need to. But school doesn't know this, but I have my one extra day, my one extra personal day. There's a real good chance I might be sick on the day we have to give grades. Because what we're supposed to do is you're supposed to give grades, and then afterwards there's a school picnic. And I'm not a picnic guy. Sorry. So to answer your question, John, yeah, that stuff is out there, but it's under the 428